So my task is to wrap up and try to summarize the last day and a half, and all I can say is, wow, what a day and a half. It's really been pretty exciting for me to listen and to learn. But as I looked through my notes, I did see, at least from my perspective, a pattern that was repeated over and over again. It was the pattern of movement and action and translating concepts to reality and getting things done and results. And it started right off from Susan King, the first panel, Susan King, who described the movement from the Roundtable as who are these guys, to the Roundtable as offering all of this, these programs that form an integrated set, that as a set, if implemented, have the potential for transformational and cultural change in temporal management affairs. And then Chuck talks about the movement from aspiration in our school system to action in the school system. And Jeff from describing the current state of our capital base for being less productive and more less stable, less able to contribute to the long-term mission of the church, to a different model, a place of financial stability that can contribute to the church. And the theme, again, as I'm looking through my notes, continued in when Chris spoke about moving from a model of leadership as a small group of people in a position to leadership as all of us, and leadership as a position to leadership as action. And he reminded us of Pope Benedict's movement also, from collaboration between lay and clerical leaders to co-responsibility. The Esteem panel also was a great example of moving from a position where we accept young Catholics will fall away and come back, to a different model of engaging and involving young Catholics and giving them the opportunity and the authority to participate now, not waiting till later. And the panel on church finances, the same thing. Let's move from a tactical approach of finances every year, getting enough money to make, to get by, to fund directly the ministries that we have, to a strategic model, a model where the finances ensure ministries can continue well beyond a year. And at Mass, again, it's almost as if the bishop was picking up on the same thing when Bishop Blair says, by their fruit, by their actions, by what they do, you will know them. That the test of authenticity is doing the right things, coupled with the complete trust in God. And of course, Father Brendan then reminded us that only together can we make church. Only together can we move from where we are to where we ought to be. The movement from where the organization is, where the church is, to where it ought to be. This is the theme that I heard throughout the conference, in the presentations, at Mass, at panels and breaks, in workshops. And maybe there was one counterpoint in Father Tom's presentation. I haven't quite processed that yet. That maybe we know where we should move from into, but whether or not there will be that movement, I guess we'll all see. But that was the theme that I heard anyway throughout the whole conference. And I was, once again, at these conferences and meetings, I'm just proud and honored to be part of a group of leaders that take our baptismal duties seriously, that are grateful for what the church has given us, but mindful of where the church is and desirous of moving it to where it ought to be, and to take that responsibility seriously. So, you know, the ask for me is, and to all of you, is simply this: what we should ask all of ourselves every day. What can I do in my part of the church to move from where it is to where it ought to be? how can I take my part of the church and encourage it to become a partner in excellence, to encourage it to have, to use Catholic 360 in its evaluation, to encourage the priests to participate in the toolbox or catholicpastor.org. What can I do to help explain the opportunity to move the church into a more stable financial situation? How can I open doors for the initiative in investment to better the church and to help the mission? That's what I took away from this meeting, and I'd like in the last maybe 15, 20 minutes to open it up to you to see and to hear what each of you took away from the meeting. How have you processed the information? What next steps have you formulated in your mind for either yourself or for the roundtable? Where do you see the organization nationally and regionally moving in the next couple of years? So I'm going to turn it over to you and hope that we get some response from your participation.
Oh, thank you. Kathleen McChesney, former board member. I think that the regionalization, we just had this discussion upstairs. If you had started this organization with the idea of, well, let's have regions and then we'll come together as a national organization, it would have been the wrong direction. But the fact that you have built now a national organization that has the respect of so many aspects of the church, of so many leaders within the church, that this is an organization that knows what it's doing and has a vision and has the means and the talent to fulfill those visions. By bringing that out into all parts of the country, various regions, both urban and rural, that's the way to go. The talent and the desire is here, and it's clearly evident. I mean, we've been meeting on the East Coast for years and years, and now on the West Coast, it's just a vibrant example of what is out there, of what can be done. And if you can harness the capabilities and the enthusiasm of the people that have participated in this today and those that come to the regional meetings, I think that a couple of years from now, you're just going to have an organization that is will be a model not only for our friends in the UK who are here today, but for so many others around the world where you have this talent. So I'm really inspired and heartened by where you're at right now. You've done a great job to get here.
Bob Beloin from St. Thomas More Chapel at Yale. I think the financial piece is going to be really critical in the investment piece. If you can really ratchet that up, you will have tremendous credibility among the bishops with that piece of investment to give them more power than they can have on their own individually. And second point is if the roundtable is connected to Cardinal O'Malley, and if Cardinal O'Malley is on the phone with Pope Francis, I think the roundtable can make a tremendous contribution given the openness of the Pope and the contact with Cardinal O'Malley. That might be a tremendous gift to Cardinal O'Malley going to Rome.
No, thanks.
Should we take on the curator?
Betty Ann Donnelly, I'd like to follow up on what Bob said, that I think I would ask the board of the roundtable to think very systematically and critically about that question. If you ask for an appointment with Cardinal O'Malley and think specifically of what services you can offer him in that conversation with the G8, so that our organization has met and thought about these issues. We would like to be of service to the church, specifically on curial reform, on a lot of issues, and to seek that meeting. We are now almost in July, and they're going to be meeting, I think, at the beginning of October in Rome. So to seek a meeting with him and to offer our services.
No, good. And we have been talking among ourselves about what services to offer and how to approach that meeting. And so
Oh.
thanks for the encouragement.
I'll just express a concern and a caution around that. I think the success of the Roundtable has been its work at the level that it's been working, diocese and so on. And I think there's a risk of overreaching. I think you do offer whatever services and such to Cardinal O'Malley, but I would hate, I think it would be, how strong to be. I think it would be unwise to set our hopes on taking on that big agenda of reforming the Curia or the Vatican. I think there is so much to be done within the United States, but I think an offer such as this perhaps would give a broader opportunity to work at the local level in Canada and in England and in other countries. And I guess I think the sweet spot of this entity is working at the local level, but broader than the United States is. If there's a next step, that's it.
Jim, Fred Gluck.
Fred.
I had a couple of conversations with a few of the people on the staff, and we've done a lot of good work in individual parishes and dioceses on the finances. But I think it would be very productive to complement our approach on the investment side by trying to characterize the structural nature of the financial problems facing the church, many of which I believe have to do with the fact that we had 50 years ago, we needed a lot of plant for our educational system, among other things, and the needs for that have diminished. And we ought to take a structural look at what the nature of the financial problems facing us are in the U.S., and then use that to characterize an approach, a general approach that we can take to the as a starting point to the bishops and the dioceses and the parishes.
Good, thanks.
Sally Van Strembeth again. I just want to say danger, danger, Will Robinson, about any meetings with the bishops. And here's my experience. Jim Post asked me to run to be the vice president, national vice president of Voice of the Faithful. And in my experience with that wonderful group, the decision to make demands and to put the bishops on the defensive was disastrous. Yeah. So I think you have to be invited. I think you run a huge risk by coming to even someone as friendly as Cardinal O'Malley seems to be and saying, here's how we can fix your problem. Again, I'm not a business person, I'm a theologian, but I just saw that as destructive to the mission of that a Voice of the Faithful. And some of you may have more experience with that, but that's a caution.
Yeah, no, that's a good caution, and one that has been part of our discussions on the board almost constantly. That we're a positive force. We're not here we're here to challenge in some ways, but we're here to help you govern the church. We have responsibilities. We acknowledge those responsibilities. That's, I think, really good comment.
Yeah,
Jeff,
on that
yeah.
point, we sort of approached this in terms of we've been gathering intellectual capital and resources and experiences and whatnot, and we approached the hierarchy, with offering those resources and sort of giving them an opportunity to tell us what their issues are, but also our observations on things that we have seen in other parts of our lives that might be applicable to helping them do their sort of thing. So we like to think that we're extremely sensitive about that. But on the other hand, we do have to engage them in specific dialogue. And, for instance, Cardinal O'Malley has been a supporter, friend, and honoree for us, and he's experienced the quality of our work. We're developing that with Cardinal Dolan now. But again, I just have to remind everybody, the church, you all know this, and if we continually just focus on the bishops and the cardinals and the whatnot, I think we're missing a big part of it. I mean, you all represent a huge swath of the Catholic community, and many of the institutions and organizations that we all represent have some of these same issues. And the good news is you're open-minded to, working on these things. I think we have to figure out how we can use our collective voice in a more effective way in order to gain the attention of some of the hierarchy in a way to make it more efficient and effective for us to help them do what they want. Because I don't know about you, but when we started this 10 years ago, we brought in a lot of people to help with the demographics of the church and whatnot, and we knew we were in a slide, and we knew it was going to get worse. But I have to say, some of the numbers that were put up on these screens today, and we just had a session on the parochial school system. I mean, when you lose 61% of kids going to Catholic schools, and some of the things that people were pointing out in terms of if you're losing 4 for every 1 new parishioner, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, we should be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by it. And it's amazing to me that the hierarchy isn't more embarrassed by it. But to me, we have to figure out how we can communicate with them in a way. And I think that hopefully you've gotten a sense from us that we've developed a strategy. We've listened to what the market is saying. We've picked sort of 4 pillars to operate within. Within those 4 pillars, there's a lot of very practical stuff that we've tried to identify. What we need is now, and Kathleen's, I think I really appreciate what she said. I mean, we're here on the West Coast now. We need to identify more of you, your colleagues, people that you're interacting with on a daily basis who you think might be interested in working with us, and bring them into the fold, enhance the council. There's plenty of work to be done, but some of this stuff has to be done on a regional basis or a local basis. Help us figure out who the access leaders and communicators are in order to do that. But that, for instance, that whole philanthropy piece, the 100 leading philanthropists, is just sort of the tip of the iceberg. Help us identify in this region of the world who are the key players in that way, because that will help us accomplish a lot of our goals. The schools, the schools part of our initiative. You guys are leaders in that area out here. The reason why we brought the Sobratos last night is just that, one of 50 examples of people of doing really interesting things. How do we get in contact with those people and to do more and to bring them into some of the strategies that we've initiated, but what are the great things that you're doing here that we can learn from that could be transmitted across the country? So, I mean, to me, the ask for those of you who are new to the organization or who are coming just, for the first time to, from a regional standpoint, please help us identify other people here that you think would be interested in any of the activities and strategies that we've got going.
I saw you move your hand, Mary. See, I'm a teacher. I already, there's a question over there.
I wasn't getting a comment.
Okay. Carrie?
Well, I have closing.
Yeah, okay. I think we might be at that point. Yeah.
My only remarks are to thank you all for your extraordinary participation over these last 2 days. And I especially want to thank our speakers and presenters and all who made this conference possible, especially the Board of Trustees and my extraordinary colleagues on staff with me. Just your dedication is awesome. As Jeff said, please stay involved. Please identify those other leaders from all walks of life, particularly in this region, but across the United States, who can contribute with you all to making a meaningful contribution to the church. And be advocates of our mission, be ambassadors of it, especially with church leaders, and stay involved. And I wanted to just bring your attention to, there is an envelope in your conference packet. We had a challenge, a match of a gift of $50,000 if we could receive 100 new donations. And we are up to 86 just in a couple of weeks. We have about one more week to go, so we need 14 donations, just a hint. We're very grateful. Of those, I think 60 were first-time givers to the Roundtable. So it's important to us that people are on record supporting this movement on behalf of the church, and that is one way you can be on record. And I especially want to thank our local trustee hosts, Fred Gluck, BJ Casson, Chuck Geschke, Betsy Bliss, and Kathleen McChesney, our California trustees. We're really grateful for you. So thank you and Santa Clara University. So wonderful to be on this beautiful campus. So many thanks.